Imagine you're settling into your seat on a flight. Engines humming, everything feels, remarkably smooth. Routine, even. But beneath that calm surface, there's this incredibly complex system at play. A kind of silent choreography, really. Rules, actions, decisions guiding every single moment. What is it that keeps thousands of flights safe day in, day out? It's definitely not magic. It's meticulous design. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something pretty fundamental to safety, something you probably don't think about much when you fly, but it's absolutely crucial. We're talking about the operational philosophy behind Airbus's procedures design, specifically for aircraft like the A320, the A321. We're actually looking at the flight crew techniques manuals, basically, the instruction books for pilots.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, is just how intentional this whole design is. These aren't just random checklists. They're built on, well, tons of research into human factors, how we think, how complex systems work. So our mission today isn't just to list the procedures. We want to get into why they're structured the way they are, how they ensure safety and efficiency, and crucially, that difference between what a pilot must know by heart and what they, read and do.
Right. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll really appreciate this invisible dance that makes flying so safe. And maybe even find some principles you can apply yourself, in managing complex tasks in your own life or work. Okay, so let's start big picture. Why? Why do we even need such detailed procedures for pilots? Wouldn't it just, I don't know, slow them down or stifle their expertise?
That's a really good question, and it hits right at the core of aviation safety. Our sources, they lay out a few key reasons.
Yeah.
First off, it's about sharing a common practice. Think about it. Pilots come from all over, different training, different backgrounds. Without a standard way of doing things, every cockpit could be, well, different. These procedures ensure consistency. They build a kind of universal language between the crew and the plane. It means an A320 pilot from Airline X should handle a situation pretty much exactly like a pilot from Airline Y.
Standardization based.
Exactly. Then second, and this is probably the most obvious one, it's about safe and efficient flight. These procedures are optimized like crazy using simulations, real data, everything. Safety is number one, of course, but efficiency, fuel burn, flight time, even wear on the aircraft that's baked into the design too.
Got it.
Third, and this is vital for a two-pilot crew, they organize task sharing and teamwork. The procedures clearly define who does what, when they do it, how they communicate. It cuts down confusion, makes sure they work together effectively.
Like a script for the cockpit crew.
Sort of, yeah. And finally, they guide pilot actions. They provide that clear interface with these incredibly complex machines. Imagine trying to manage everything, especially if something goes wrong, without that clear guidance. The mental workload would just be immense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It reminds me of, like, a surgical team. Everyone's an expert, right? But without that strict protocol, who does what, when, how you talk, even the best people could run into trouble. The procedure is the shared plan.
Precisely. And the source material really emphasizes this isn't just tacked on. These procedures are consistent with the Airbus aircraft design philosophy. They're meant to be easy to grasp, easy to find, and pilots are trained relentlessly to apply them strictly for a safe and efficient use. It's a whole system, design, training, application, all linked.
Okay, so you've got this huge set of possible actions. The sources immediately make a big split, right? Between routine and not routine. What does that mean in practice for the pilots?
Yeah, that's the first big cut, and it shapes everything. Routine procedures are for your normal, everyday flying, all the standard stuff from pushback to parking. Then you have not routine procedures. These are for things that happen less often, maybe abnormal situations or, emergencies.
And there's even a kind of flowchart or decision tree in the manuals to help visualize this. What does that
It's a
show?
great visual, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So routine procedures, they branch into what they call normal procedures. And under that, you've got memory actions, stuff pilots know, cold, and NOR MCL read and check. Those are your standard checklists they read out loud. Now, the not routine side, as you'd expect, it's more complex. It covers abnormal and emergency procedures, and crucially, that includes memory items, things you have to do instantly from memory.
Okay, the critical stuff.
Exactly. But it also includes normal procedures, supplementary procedures, which are actually read and do, and then procedures tied to specific systems or manuals. ECAM procedures, that's the aircraft's monitoring system.
All right.
Also read and do. QRH procedures from the Quick Reference Handbook, again, read and do. FCOM procedures from the Vune Operating Manual, read and do. And even OVB procedures, which are special bulletins, also read and do.
Wow, okay, so it's definitely not just one list, it's layered. Different situations trigger different types of procedures and even different ways of doing them, sometimes using different tools. Let's stick with the everyday stuff for a minute, the routine procedures. Tell us more about these standard operating procedures, the SOPs. How did they work in the cockpit?
Right, SOPs. They really are the bread and butter of normal flying. The sources call them actions done frequently, basically routine tasks. And the way they're designed is smart. Usually it's one SOP for each phase of flight, takeoff, climb, cruise, landing. Keeps things clear. The steps are always in chronological order, so it feels natural. And they're designed to be easy to memorize and apply. You see pilots doing these cockpit scans, flowing through actions. That's often an SOP, almost like muscle memory.
So a lot of normal flying is pilots working from this deeply ingrained knowledge, like a practiced routine.
Pretty much, yeah. The idea is the crew should do SOP actions by memory, but, and this is important, it's not just memory. The source says some SOP actions are checked against checklists. So memory keeps the flow going, but the checklist is that vital safety check, double checking. And of course, SOPs assume everything's working normally, all the automatic systems are doing their thing, which leads to the question, what if things aren't perfectly normal, but it's not yet an emergency?
Good point. Which brings us to the other type of normal procedure, supplementary procedures. How are they different from SOPs?
Supplementary procedures are still for normal operations, but for tasks done infrequently. The source calls them non-routine situations within the normal context. Think about things like de-icing the plane before takeoff, or special ground procedures, maybe for unusual cargo, or even manually starting an engine if the auto start isn't working. These aren't things you do every single flight, but they're expected capabilities of the aircraft.
Got it. So not emergencies, but not the daily grind either. Specific tasks for specific, less common needs.
Exactly. And the key thing here is how they're done, using the reading and DO principle. Typically, it's the pilot monitoring the one not flying who reads the steps aloud, and they execute them carefully, one by one. Like SOPs, they're designed for clarity. Easy to find, one procedure per situation, steps in order. It's like, think of a professional chef. Most cooking is second nature, they're SOPs. But if they try a really complex new dish, they're going to follow the recipe carefully, right? Read and do. That's a supplementary procedure.
Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating for me. We've covered the routine. But the real acid test is when things go wrong. Those high-stakes moments, an abnormal situation or a full-blown emergency. The procedures shift gears completely, and there's this critical difference in how pilots handle them.
Absolutely. This is where safety design and understanding human factors under pressure really come into play. These are non-routine, obviously, and how pilots respond depends entirely on the criticality of the situation. It could be a system failure, bad weather, anything unexpected and potentially dangerous. And the absolute fundamental difference, as the sources make crystal clear, is how you execute the procedure.
So how do they know instantly which way to go, memory or manual?
Okay, so here's the split. A memory item, or an OEB, immediate action. These are for when the flight crew literally has no time to refer to anything, not ECAM, not the QRH book, nothing. Why? Because they need to act now to keep the aircraft safe, to maintain a safe flight path. These few critical actions must be done immediately and purely by memory. There's zero time to look things up. It has to be reflexive. Think engine failure right after takeoff. The first few steps are pure memory, immediate action.
Right, the act now, think later, or maybe act now, verify later moments.
Yeah.
Seconds count.
Exactly that. Now contrast that with a read and DO procedure. This applies when the execution is when appropriate, meaning either the immediate threat is handled or the abnormal situation itself allows for a moment to think and consult. These are managed using the ECAM system or by pulling out the QRH, the FCOM manual, or maybe an OEB. The pressure is still on, no doubt, but it's not that absolute, immediate, split-second demand. You have the mental space to read and then do. The source material lays it out very clearly. When? For memory items, OEB, immediate actions, immediately. How? Memory. When? For other abnormal emergency procedures via ECAM, QRH, FCOM, OEB, when appropriate. How? Read and do. It's built around human limits under stress.
So it really comes down to that immediate time pressure and the direct impact on the aircraft's safety or control. If it's critical right now, it's memory. If you have even a little bit of breathing room to ensure you're doing the right thing accurately by checking the source, you use read and do. It's a smart hierarchy.
Precisely. And if you look at the bigger picture, it shows a deep understanding of human-machine interaction in high-risk fields. You prioritize the immediate flight path critical actions, things you absolutely must train to reflex level. Then, once you stabilize the situation, you transition to a more methodical, verified approach using checklists and system guidance, which of course brings up the huge challenge. How do you effectively train for things you hope pilots never ever have to do, but must perform perfectly if they do? And that's where all the intensive simulator training comes in, drilling those memory items until they are absolutely second nature.
So, wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here? We've peeked behind the curtain at this incredibly detailed world of Airbus procedures. From the almost subconscious routine of SOPs, that everyday dance in the cockpit, to that crucial life or death line between memory items and read and do's in emergencies. It's just so clear that everything is driven by this intense focus on safety and efficiency, an invisible but vital choreography.
Yeah, I think this deep dive really shows that flying these complex jets isn't just about technical skill with the controls. It's about this shared discipline, this structured teamwork, and critically, knowing when to trust your ingrained training and when to deliberately slow down, verify, and follow the book or the screen. It's really quite a testament to how smart design and rigorous training can manage enormous complexity and risk, even when the stakes are incredibly high. It's impressive stuff.
So here's something to think about. Consider the critical tasks in your own life, maybe at work, maybe personal projects. Are there moments where you absolutely must act from memory, where instant reaction is key, and maybe other times where taking that extra moment to read and do, check a reference, follow a process step by step, could actually prevent a mistake and lead to a much better, safer result? How could applying some of this procedure's design thinking clarity, knowing when to act fast versus when to act methodically, bring a bit more safety and efficiency into your own complex world?